Don, thank you so much for that introduction. And my thanks to all of you for joining us for the 66th annual meeting of the Greater Baltimore Committee. As always, it is an honor to be here, especially coming after such a powerful lineup as the one we just saw. How often do we get all of our regional elected officials in one place, combining their collective political power simply to thank frontline workers, citizens, and businesses for remaining resilient in the face of COVID-19 and making a difference in their respective counties? How often are we treated to the incredible talents of Tom Chalkley, a teacher of cartooning at Johns Hopkins University Center for Visual Arts? His sketches truly blew me away. And I'm so grateful to be here coming behind the leaders who accepted this year's Regional Visionary Award. Dr. Mohan Sutha from the University of Maryland Medical System, Kevin Sowers from Johns Hopkins Medicine, Dr. Bruce Jarrell of University of Maryland, Baltimore, and Ron Daniels of Johns Hopkins University. These four institutions are to be commended for their combined work, providing medical care, assistance, and medical research, all related to the COVID-19 pandemic. From the development of a COVID-19 tracking system to the urgent study and testing of an effective vaccine, the Baltimore region's medical research assets have proved to be second to none. It is not an exaggeration to say what they have done is unmatched by any other region in the country. Because of their working across silos, their collaborative efforts have brought us to a point where we can see, not so far in the future, a return to offices, schools, travel, and somewhat regular lifestyle activities. Mohan, Kevin, Bruce, Ron, what an honor to have all of you here today. You have truly led the way. At last year's annual meeting, I spoke about the importance of interconnectivity, the idea that we are all in this together, and that our goal as the GBC and as business leaders and individual community members should be to ensure that everything we do engages all segments of our city and region. That our work should not only improve our region's competitiveness and our viability, but also drive an agenda of equity, inclusion, and opportunity. Nearly a year later, I'm proud to say that we are making good on that goal. We are not just thinking about it. We are not just talking the talk. We are moving forward with purpose. Earlier, Don laid out to you the many ways that the GBC has begun to put the meat on the bones of this reshaping of our mission and values. One important way is that the GBC has reimagined our operational priorities, including and maybe most importantly, as it pertains to our commitment to advocating and advancing racial equity and social justice. This priority will be an integral part of and incorporated into all GBC programs, policies, and activities. And in order to do that, we will need to continue connecting and breaking down silos, similar to the way Brian Pinnock and Destiny Simone Ramjan and the team at Care First did when they launched the Better Together initiative, encouraging businesses and organizations across the region to join the fight to increase the number of people getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Through this effort, Care First committed $1.7 million to 3 regional organizations, ensuring groups most disproportionately impacted were first in line to get the vaccine. Or how Tim Regan and our friends at Whiting Turner with Lauren Bennett, their Vice President of Community Impact, leading the charge, recognized that young people and families were facing financial challenges because of the pandemic and committed $100,000 per year over the next 3 years to Morgan State University. That gift will provide support to students pursuing degrees in construction management and engineering. And I can't forget to call out BGE, an Exelon company, for establishing a $15 million grant to support minority-owned businesses over 3 years. These GBC members, leaders among leaders, heeded the call to stretch beyond themselves, and their efforts are helping to close the gap that exists between so many of our communities. Their work represents just a few examples, a few of demonstrating the real time, the role that the GBC must play if we are to achieve greater economic growth and prosperity. A highly educated and skilled workforce, a more just and equitable community, and a region that is a national model for diverse and inclusive workplaces. The Greater Baltimore Committee has a critical voice, and so we cannot allow ourselves to tire of this work or to have our enthusiasm grow stale. James Baldwin once said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed that is not faced." We must continue to face the challenge of inequities in our communities head on. We must continue to break down barriers and strive for interconnectedness. We must keep moving forward with purpose today to be a national example of how business leaders can be a catalyst for a better and more equitable tomorrow. I know for some of you, this work might make sense in theory, but it falls into the category of a side project, something to squeeze in around the core work of our business. Candidly, this is a major reason why well-intentioned DEI efforts of the past have failed. Recently, I shared publicly about a partnership we have at Exelon that helps us hire people who are differently abled to work at our company. I shared the successes, the tangible results of that partnership, and used it as an example of why we should prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it works. At Exelon, we consider diversity, equity, and inclusion, and skills and qualifications interconnected. Ensuring we have a diverse and inclusive team means we have strengthened the foundation of skills and qualifications our team uses to accomplish its work. See, DEI drives excellence in all parts of our business, but for too long, DEI has been seen as only a part of the work. I'm here today to tell you it actually is the work. This past year at Exelon has been full of significant challenges. In the midst of a global pandemic and national racial unrest, we also dealt with derechos, tornadoes, record-breaking outages, economic challenges from undervalued nuclear plants, and customers who were struggling like never before. And then on top of all of that, we announced that we were separating the regulated utility side of our business from the generation side. Now, any one of those things would have seemed like reason enough to say DEI could take a back seat this year. Let's focus on it next year when we aren't contending with so much that could affect our core business and our bottom line. But when we talk in our purpose about cleaner, brighter futures for our customers and communities, that's not an abstract, aspirational goal for us. It is entirely connected to our push for equity in our communities. So instead, we doubled down on equity-related efforts. We leaned into strengthening and growing our workforce development strategy, which includes $9 million in our long-range plan to bring economic equity and empowerment to underserved and under-resourced communities. We continued working toward our aggressive goal to electrify 30% of our vehicle fleet by 2025 and 50% by 2030, which is particularly good for under-resourced communities hardest hit by air pollution. And we created a racial equity task force comprised of senior leaders executing on a company-wide racial equity initiative that eliminates barriers and creates opportunities for our employees, vendors, and communities. One of the central tenets of that initiative is accountability. Because without accountability, there can be no progress. That is true for each and every one of us. And so, as we head into another summer in a pandemic, with all the challenges to our businesses and communities that go along with that, it is important to hold fast to the idea that we are better when we put our communities first. We are better when we lean in on the values that we claim to profess. We can't be complacent, and we can't be afraid to speak up when we see our colleagues being complacent either. We have to get comfortable with challenging our peers, outdated or misguided ways of thinking. We must continue to challenge ourselves. We have to continue to ask the tough questions, push them to do more, hold them accountable, and move them forward with purpose. As I said last time, as our community evolves, as our collective understanding evolves, the GBC will need to continue to evolve. If we don't, we will get left behind. So when you leave here today, commit to asking yourself and your colleagues, are we engaging all segments of our city and region to really drive an agenda of equity, inclusion, and opportunity? Are we really seeing ourselves as business leaders interconnected with all of our neighbors in all of our communities? And if not, why not? What can I do to help move forward? Last time I told a story about my friend Tom Friedman and his efforts to intentionally reach across barriers. I'm pleased to say that today, Tom is here to talk to us about that himself. Tom is always insightful and a real joy to hear from, so I'm thrilled that he took time out of his day to come share his thoughts with us. And I also know that I'm standing between us and his wisdom, so I'm going to wrap up here by saying this. Fellow members, we must be intentional about our efforts to drive change. We've started down the path, and I'm proud of the work that's been done and what you have planned for the balance of this year. But we are on a journey. That journey can seem daunting, I know. But as they say, every great journey begins with one step. Keep stepping with me. Keep holding yourselves and each other accountable. And most importantly, keep moving forward with purpose.